Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Media Decoded podcast, the number one podcast to help you understand social media better so that you grow your business, get more clients, and monetize. And today, I have a special friend. I've been knowing Anthony, oh my goodness, I don't even know. It's probably been over 10 years by now. And I'm really excited to chat today because today we're going to dive into beauty and marketing. Okay. We're going to dive into the personal hair and self-care industry because I feel that this is a booming industry. You all know that I definitely come from a background with beauty, and I'm talking to another marketing expert, strategist extraordinaire. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us on the Social Media Decoded podcast. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, and I'm super, super excited about today's conversation.
Yeah, so could you let the listeners know a little bit more about you and how did you get started in this industry? I know your story is, y'all, get out your pens and papers because it's good.
Yeah, so my name is Anthony Standifer. I have been a student of the beauty industry for 24 years now. Extremely fortunate to have worked in some of the largest multinational beauty companies in the world. I spent a good portion of my career when I was working for others inside of Revlon in various divisions of their company here in the US and a bit overseas. Within that, I had the good fortune of being a brand manager. I did new product development, managed marketing strategies for a lot of big brands that still sit on retail shelves to this day, domestically and globally. The last 8 years, though, I have been the fortunate co-founder and operating partner inside of mSEED Group. And mSEED Group is a threefold company in that we offer product development and small batch manufacturing for folks that are starting and scaling in the beauty and personal care space. So I'm a company that you come to when you're like, hey, I've got this really great idea for a beauty product and I only want to make 500 units as opposed to 15,000 units, which is what most manufacturers will start off with as a minimum quantity. And within that, we also then offer a lot of support for these same type of small growing brands in the form of marketing consulting, because I truly believe that there need to be more people at the table. And the only reason there isn't is because there's a couple of really key access points that keep people out. And product is usually one of those things because people don't get access to the type of product to really validate their idea.
Ooh, I love it. You got 20 plus years of experience. So I know this conversation is going to be rich, very
Yeah.
rich with great information. And I love, how you said you all work with, small batch because I know about the beauty industry and I know that it's very difficult to get small batch manufacturing. And I just love how you all have come together and built this amazing company. And I just been seeing you all grow and it's just so exciting. Y'all got a new warehouse and everything. Woo!
We got a new warehouse, y'all. So yeah, last year we moved into a new warehouse. We started in 3,000 square feet like 8.5 years ago, in like this industrial complex. We then moved into what we called our double wide, because we moved across the parking lot into like these two connected units where literally the landlord like cut some holes in the wall so we could move between the two units. And we grew to 10,000 square feet in that space. And then last year we were super fortunate to move into a 30,000 square foot facility that now has expanded our capabilities and the amount of people that we can serve and service to again get more people out there into the space to competitively compete.
Awesome. I love to see it because that is a blessing and congratulations to you and my girl
Thank you.
Erica. I got to get her on the podcast
Yeah,
cuz she got some good stuff to talk about too. So we're going to get her
absolutely.
on the podcast. So let her know. Let her know.
Okay, I'm gonna send it out to her.
Good. So I want to talk about some effective strategies for building brand awareness because I feel like this is the first step when, beauty brands may get out there. We got to build that brand awareness. That's the first step in attracting new customers. So in the beauty and personal care industry, what are some of the tips that the listeners can implement today, like when they're first starting out with brand awareness?
So this is going to sound counterintuitive as a manufacturer, but it is not all about the product. It really, really is about the messaging. And sometimes that seems a bit overwhelming because you're like, oh my God, no, I need to have a really, really great skincare line and I need it to be like the best of the best. And yes, there is some truth to that you need a performing product. But as a small beauty brand, the reality is that you likely cannot afford the most cutting edge leading technology that's out there. What you can do, however, is you can work with a manufacturer like MC Group and others that are out there to develop a really quality product that solves a need. And once you can solve a need, then it's all about really the messaging behind that need. because in today's landscape, there are multi-million dollar companies, Unilever, Estee Lauder, tons of indie brands that are out there in the clean and not clean beauty space, historical brands. And so really the best way to stand out is to get really clear on who you are serving. And the thing that I most advise people is to get super, super, super niche and specific about the ideal customer that you think you can provide value to. And for me, once you know who your target customer is and really can identify it, and I challenge people to give me a profile of the ideal person. And you could give me so much detail about this person that I could literally draw a picture of that person and give you a sketch back to say, is this what she or he looks like? Because you've given me so much detail to say that they are, 27, they are at their second job, they've got one kid, they're managing how to work in corporate America versus having a career. They're making this amount of money. They like luxury, but they don't have a lot of luxury money. If you can get that kind of detail, then I can then say you are ready to then go out and really communicate with that person. And the secret, and this is the real sauce here. The secret is that you start to communicate to that one person as if the product was made just for them. And you do so using the language, the tone, the vernacular, and you speak to that person so specifically that they go, oh my God, they speak my slang. They know my nuances and quirks. They know that I got a kid, but I want to be able to balance these other things. And once you can do that, it's the beginning of magic. And I've seen it time and time again for brands that have popped and gone on and become really, really successful. They started off because they get really, really specific about one specific problem to one very specific consumer. And they just nailed that, because for that one person, there's going to be then dozens and hundreds of other people that are like them that will lean into that conversation and say, oh my God, have you heard about this brand? Because like, wow, it's whatever they got going over there has pushed through the clutter because they speak the language of the consumer. And it's not this broad beauty for everyone every day, all the time. When you're Unilever or Estee Lauder or L'Oreal, you can do that kind of marketing. But when you got a tight budget, you need to get really, really specific. So my message in terms of being, branding and messaging is to get really, really specific and then nail and hone in on that person.
Oh, that was a master class. I hope y'all had y'all pens and papers and you were writing down, okay, it's not about the product, it is about the message. Because I know when I go to Target, I'm reading the stories. Oh, I want to know, how does this speak to me, right? And so I think it really is important with the messaging to have that on point, because if you don't, you're talking to everyone,
It
but you're not
is.
talking to everybody. You're
You're
talking to
talking to
that
one
one person.
specific. And you make a great point. So the shopping experience at the retail shelf is decidedly different than what's happening on social media. When you go into the store, you're going with purpose and direction. It's my target day. I'm going. I got these things to give, things to get. I got to pick up groceries. I got to pick up some clothes. I got to do this game for the kid. And I'm going to go down the beauty aisle because I need something specific. Or you're just a product junkie and you're now wandering the aisle. That experience is decidedly different than I'm on Instagram or TikTok and I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at, my favorites and I'm digesting information. That those are two separate experiences. And for the starting beauty brand, leveraging social media as a way of bringing people into your front yard. And I always use the analogy of you're selling a house and you can set the sign out on the front yard. There's tons of people that are going to see that. That's different than getting somebody to buy your house. They got to go inside and see the rooms and do these things. There's going to be a ton of people that see you from the street or from the front yard, but your job is to bring them into the home. But in order to do that, you got to get people in the front yard first. And so social media for me is all about getting as many people into the front yard to see the outside of your house, to say, this seems pretty interesting. Like, I didn't even know I was in the market for this kind of house, but it's interesting. Let me at least go in and see what this is all about.
Oh, that's a good the segue into my social media question. And I feel that social media plays a very great role in a lot of businesses. And so I want to talk about the landscape of social media. And since we're talking about beauty brands, there's this founder piece. And for me, I know a lot of founders don't want to show their face or tell
Yeah.
the story. And so what tips would you give to small businesses when it comes to social media and promoting and marketing? Like, what are some best practices that you've seen or that you tell your clients?
So it's a hard thing, and particularly amongst female consumers. And I make a decidedly different decision of female founders versus or brands versus male brands, because there is some nuance in terms of how people engage in the space. And beauty are, quite honestly, the predominant buyers in beauty anyway. So it's a hard choice if you're saying, like, I don't want to be Kim Kardashian and showing my life on TV, on Instagram, and showing my baby and showing my partner and showing my messy house and all of this other stuff, or faking my life in some ways in order to do that. And so it's a crossroads. I push people to say, like, it's sort of the expectation for people if you're going on Instagram, TikTok. Um, Brands right now don't do exceptionally well when they're just a brand. People engage with people, not brands. And so your brand has to then either take on a persona or have people associated with it. But if you are just like, I don't want to show my face at all, then I say to people, recognize that you're going to take a harder path. And it's not impossible, but you're going to take a harder path because, again, social media is designed for people interactions. And if you just show me bottles and creams and key ingredients, like, that doesn't speak to people, but you as a person can speak directly to me. And so the thing that I do offer is that if people are uncomfortable, I do have a lot of conversations around, like, what makes you so uncomfortable. And if it's just the fact that, like, I don't want to show my face and I don't want to be put out there in such a public way, then I say, well, great, then there's a couple of other alternatives. How comfortable are you talking to people? And if you're comfortable talking to people, even for me, then the place where I lean in is that I use my voice. I'm a talker. So I don't mind having a podcast. And so when I went into the social media realm, one of the places that I started my footprint was in um, developing content via a podcast. And that podcast is now 5 or 6 years old. And I put it out, and it's designed to support and to provide information to people in the beauty industry. And through that, the reach of that has gone far, far, far than I ever could. And it's not that I'm afraid to show my face on social media, but I'm certainly most comfortable talking to people. And so maybe that's the inroad that you use. Another secret, and this is a really good juicy tidbit if you're looking and you're, again, in that camp of I don't want to show my face. If you're a great writer, oh my God, please put out written content. Because for people who actually read, and it's not the majority of people, but for the people who actually read and digest content, it is amazing. And I subscribe to and know people that subscribe to certain people strictly for their written weekly, bi-weekly, or daily content. And it is amazing. There's people, awesomely Lovey Ajayi, started off as a blogger. And so she writes content. And to this day, I still read her content. There's like 2 or 3 other people that put out weekly content that I look forward to. And I'm not a ferocious reader, but I like to read. And so if you're providing compelling content, then I suggest you lean into that. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. The easiest, most traveled path is definitely going to be visual. People want to see people, not brands and key ingredients. But if you're vehemently opposed to that, then what is it that you can do to truly connect and engage with people? And if you can do those things, do them consistently, and then just lean into it.
Oh, mic drop. Consistently and lean into it. That was
Lean into it.
good.
Lean
That
into
was
it.
good.
It is not overnight. You got to be out there consistently. It's years in the making. And I don't even tell people days, months, or weeks. It is years in the making. And that can be a bit daunting, but you got to do something consistently in order for it to truly stick at a massive level. You'll get a few people in the beginning, which, as a beauty brand founder, that's what you need. You just need 50 people that are rocking with you. So great, put out your content and get to those 50 people and they rock with you. And it's awesome. But in order to then scale that thing, it's something that is going to take time, and your consistent effort, it has to be with that time. And the moment you fall off and take 2 or 3 months away, then you've lost consistency and have to then work to rebuild it.
Oh, and another great segue. You're great at podcasts. I know you have a podcast, so you're great at this because this is a great segue into our next question about common challenges that small beauty and personal care brands face when scaling, and how do they, overcome this? Everybody is, trying to grow, 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 but how do we sustain
Mhm.
that?
Um, I think that, so 2 things to that. It's talking to too many people. Again, I'm super going to go back to this idea of a niche. There is a community of people, and I'm like super fascinated with it in terms of non-binary folks. and folks that don't subscribe to the male or female spectrum. And there's a small niche market in terms of total population. But for folks that want to speak to that community, the moment you openly embrace and say, we are going against gender norms and we're going to speak to this community and we're going to do it on the terms that they want us to do it in and not what we think it should be, is the moment you capture somebody's attention. And so this niche idea is something that is so, so key that I can't under communicate is know who you're speaking to and then lean in and speak to them very specifically. The second part of this question, because we already talked about it, is at least that first part is don't do everything yourself. Like what also becomes overwhelming, I find for most entrepreneurs is you find, okay, I'm doing this social media thing. I got to be graphic designer, videographer, editor, copywriter, all of the things. And yes, it then gets overwhelming. I remember in the early days, even I, having managed teams of people that put together social content, when I was doing my own, I was like, I know how to do this. I'll just do my own stuff and put these posts together. And it was taking me like 2 days to put together a proper post. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way that in the middle of my whole life that is full and complex that I can take this kind of time. And so I then said, duh, Anthony, do what you do with other people and bring other people in. And so I highly encourage other founders to then lean in and bring in people. The first objection I get is, I can't afford that. I ain't got no money for that. Great. So then let's look at inexpensive resources that fit within your budget. When you need food and you can't afford steak, then you go find ground beef and you then make a meal out of that. Or if you can't afford designer this and you still need clothes, you then go to the outlet that is then appropriate to the budget that you have. Social media is the same way. I encourage people, if you have low budgets, Upwork is an amazing space. Fiverr, amazing spaces to then go find freelancers that will do graphic design for you. People live on Canva now. And so they then are creating these magical designs all on Canva. I was like, okay, well, great. This is awesome. And so you can then find someone that you're providing content and then they create the visual magic. I create video content. I don't do my own video editing. I went to Upwork and I found a video editor. And so they do all of my video editing. When I make my podcast, I'm good with talking, but I don't want to sit and then edit a video. I outsource that to then a podcast editor who does that work for me. And it's not a full-time person. It's a project-based person who's delivering a specific deliverable for me. And I pay for the service and then they make my life so much easier because I'm then able to put out the kind of content that I want to consistently. And I'm not doing all the work myself, because if I was doing it all myself, it would not get done. And I would just be worn out after a certain number of time because I'm like, who has this kind of time to do all these things?
Nobody. And none of the founders listening, they don't have the time. So we're going to hire people. And I know
Yes.
y'all know I've been doing my content for a long time, but I got somebody now, y'all. I got somebody to help me because
Yay.
it's too much. It's too much to work with my clients. And then I still want to promote my brand because know and believe that I'm not going to let it go. Okay. It's not ever going anywhere. So I need someone to help with that. So I'm glad you said that, because there may be people listening and they say, I don't have the money. But like you said, it's something for every budget. Fiverr, Upwork are great places. And like you said, I like that. How you say you got some ground beef, you're going to make a meal with that. So
Absolutely.
if you know how to make it cracking or get it, with something, make something out of nothing, I'm sure that you can find the proper resources that you need to at least get started, to get some content. There's so many resources on the internet, and YouTube is a really great resource for a lot of things too. So use the resources that we have, is what I heard you said, and we will be able
1,000%.
to sustain and grow. And then when we get the money, then we're going to hire the team to do it for us.
Absolutely. And so you grow into that level. But if you, the thing that I also encourage founders and anybody that's looking to start a business is your job as a founder is solving problems. And the quicker you embrace that your job as a founder is that I am a problem solver. And today it might be finances, today it might be social media, maybe it's product and quality control, but your job is to solve problems. And the quicker you embrace that and say that today's problem is I have a limited budget and I need to do social media content, let me find some creative ways to do that. Do I need to barter with my cousin who claims that they're the greatest, at doing this social media content? Well, guess what? Maybe I got to babysit for them in order for them to do the kind of content that I want. And so, maybe it's not money that you're giving to someone, but some other type of service. But you've got to be creative as a founder to solve the problem that is in front of you, because social media, we all agree, is the gateway to bringing visibility and access to your brand. And so if you've come up with some other way to scale outside of social media, please let us know because we're excited and want to highlight your success and your journey along the path. But for most of us, we recognize that at scale, social media is the place that we get eyeballs and get people, again, in the analogy, into the front yard to see this beautiful house that we have. And so we got to find ways to make it happen, regardless of what our constraints look like at any given time.
Boom, mic drop. And this is social media decoded. So it's important, y'all. It's important. But I know you know it's important. That's why you listen to this podcast. So thank you. Thank you. Oh, this has been a really great episode, packed with so many gems. Y'all got to go back and rewind. Make sure you tag me on Instagram at Michelle L. Thames. Let me know what you thought about today's episode and any gems that Anthony has dropped here today, because he's dropped so many. Okay. But I want to talk about, this is my favorite section of the podcast, any books or resources that have helped you along your amazing business and entrepreneur journey that you would like to share with the listeners here today.
So this is a podcast. I'm a podcast listener. I've been a podcast listener. I love audio content. I listen while I'm driving, at home. It's my jam. Um, there's a podcast from a business perspective that I listen to every day, and it's like 20-minute episodes, T-Boy, and it stands for the best one yet. Two guys, they literally put out highlights of the key things that have happened from a business perspective in the US and around the world. It's quick, it's funny, it's engaging content. So T-Boy is one of my daily listens. I also I'm a big long form podcast listener. And so I love hearing founders talk about their journey. And there's a podcast called Built to Sell by John Warrelaw. That's amazing. And it just talks to founders about their journey from growing and selling their business. So I do recommend that. And then, of course, I recommend my own podcast, Driving the Business, Beauty Brands and Entrepreneurship with Anthony Standifer. We put out content, and I put out content really just to engage and inform and hopefully educate people about what it's like to own a product-based business, and my own crazy nuanced journey through entrepreneurship.
Awesome. And yes, we'll make sure we put your podcast link down below in the show notes so they can go check it out, because it is a great podcast, you all. Definitely, if you are a beauty founder, you want to get into this amazing, because it's still early. Like, y'all, you think it's too late? Oh, no, no, no. You still have time. But your podcast is a great resource for that. And I'm so appreciative that you came on my podcast. Thank you so much for that. And
Yay!
before we head out for the day, please let the listeners know, where can they find you online if they want to reach out to find more about what you got going on?
So if you're reaching out, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, I'm at the Anthony Standifer. So my full name, the Anthony Standifer, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Don't sleep on LinkedIn. I do a ton of great engagement and content on LinkedIn as well, and you can find me there at Anthony Standifer. So both avenues are available to folks.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put all of that down below in the show notes. And thank you so much, Anthony, for, again, coming on and dropping so many gems. Thank you all so much for listening to today's episode. If you thought this episode was great, again, and you got a topic that you would like us to discuss here on the social media podcast, make sure to hit us up at contact@thamesmediasolutions.com. And thank you all so much again for listening. And I will talk to you all in the next one. Peace.